Speculation is rife that Azmin Ali, once one of the country's most powerful but unpopular politicians, is now trying to get back into Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim's good books and rejoin the ruling PKR party, which he had served faithfully for decades before betraying it so as to jump ahead of Anwar in the race to become the country's leader. Yet political insiders who know both men well scoff at the rumors despite the pressure piled almost on a daily basis by the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission on still yet to be identified culprits behind alleged massive graft over sand mining concessions granted by the Selangor Menteri Besar Incorporated, MBI, the business and investment arm of the Chief Minister's office. It's not Azmin's case. It looks more like propaganda from PKR cyber troopers and the same sort of ruse used to force Khalid Ibrahim out of office, a political insider who declined to be named told PoliticsNow Malaysia. The one they are trying to frighten now may even be the current Menteri Besar, Chief Minister, and not just Azmin. It is a two-pronged attack and a new MB for Selangor? For over a year now, there has been talk about Anwar appointing Selangor Chief Minister Amirudin Sherry to the federal cabinet, and there have also been moves that Amirudin supporters have criticized as aimed to dislodge him from the highest post in the Selangor state government. Given that Selangor is Malaysia's richest and most developed state, few doubt that the 44-year-old Amirudin will sooner or later be replaced. The question mark is on who the replacement could be, and the usual suspects include Anwar's eldest daughter Nurul Izzah, even though she does not hold any seat in the state's legislative assembly. Azmin had preceded Amirudin, and before Azmin was the late Khalid Ibrahim, who died of kidney disease in 2022 after helming the state from 2008 to 2014. Azmin was then made Chief Minister from 2014 to 2018 before giving up the post to Amirudin, so as to become a senior minister in the federal cabinet led by ex-Premier Mahathir Mohamad. From hero to zero. This was just before Azmin's popularity plummeted, literally going from hero to zero in the eyes of PKR and Pakatan Harapan supporters. PKR is one of the four parties in the Pakatan coalition that includes the DAP, Amanah and UPCO. Until now it is hard for Pakatan people not to curse when Azmin's name is mentioned. And this is actually quite sad because he was the capable one in PKR, the one with the brains and the drive, and not Anwar, said the insider. But he became too ambitious and impatient even though he was already Anwar's anointed successor, and for me, he made the worst possible decision in an otherwise very respectable career, and the rest is history. Indeed, Azmin betrayed not only Anwar and his PKR party in 2020. He let down the entire body of Pakatan supporters who for decades had loyally trudged to the polling stations in the hope that the hegemonic, corrupt and overly racially skewed rule of the UMNO BN coalition could be overthrown. Along with 10 other PKR members of parliament, Azmin had shocked the country when he switched his support to Muhyiddin's Bersatu party. The government that Pakatan supporters had fought so hard and bravely to wrest from the UMNO BN in 2018 was immediately toppled. Sneaky Azmin became his name. Traitor and other slurs were hurled at him and his cohort for perceived political treachery. Yet Azmin, now 60 years of age, persevered and prospered. Under Muhyiddin Yassin, the 8th premier who took over from Mahathir, Azmin was the country's de facto deputy prime minister and worked hard at his various portfolios, the last of which was as senior minister of investment, trade and industry. Unfortunately, Muhyiddin couldn't hold the fort and had to pass on the reins to Ismail Sabri, a senior leader from UMNO, after it had successfully plotted to become part of Muhyiddin's Malay unity government. When the lackluster Ismail was pressured into dissolving parliament and calling for a general election in 2022, voters punished Muhyiddin's PN coalition for its gross incompetence. Treacherous Azmin was not spared and lost his seat in the federal parliament, although he managed to retain his seat in the Selangor State Assembly. Rumor mill is in overdrive that traitor Azmin has sent a desperate message to his former boss Anwar Ibrahim, begging to rejoin PKR, his former party which he had abandoned and betrayed. Like it or not, his best bet to stay out of prison is to be part of the government, wrote the Finance Twitter. But there is one problem: after losing his parliament seat, he has no value to the unity government, which already has the supermajority in the lower house, added the portal in a report titled Traitor Desperate to Rejoin PKR. Mac seized millions after Azmin's crony betrayed and exposed his safe houses. Cases dropping off and on the radar at whim and fancy of those in power? Earlier this week, Malaysians woke up to news that the MAC had raided a safe house linked to a prominent politician and found 5 million ringgit in foreign currency, most of which were allegedly in Singapore denomination. The raid was in connection to the MAC's off-on probe into graft at the MBI. The location and existence of the safe house was exposed just 2 days after the detention of 2 individuals, including a former senior executive of MBI. The MAC also froze 15 bank accounts owned by several individuals and companies. According to Finance Twitter, it was only after one of the suspects caved in under interrogation that information about the safe house was revealed. It was rented by a businessman as a storage place for the proceeds of corruption, under the instruction of a politician once held significant influence in Selangor. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. The MAC has since raided 2 more safe houses and seized 321,000 ringgit in foreign and local currency. According to MAC Chief Azmin Baki, the investigation is still in the early stages. So far, the authorities have 15 witnesses, while a total of 4 individuals, 3 men and 1 woman, have been arrested. One is connected to a company director, another is a former MBI employee whilst the third person was a finance officer and the fourth was a driver. So far, the authorities have a total of 15 witnesses. However, as hinted by the MAC, the former powerful Selangor politician has yet to be hauled up or asked to give his statement. Since the investigation is in its infancy, it's not rocket science that those arrested so far are merely small fries, with at least one of them has become a prosecution witness after spilling the beans about the whereabouts of the safe houses, wrote the Finance Twitter. Trademark dishonesty on worsening trend? The report also alleged that a former chief operating officer, COO, of MBI appointed by Azmin was involved. In 2017, Azmin's own nephew was arrested, named and shamed by the UMNO BN administration for allegedly mining sand illegally and bribing the authorities to turn a blind eye. It is unclear whether the high-profile case was brought to court especially as the UMNO BN lost power in the 2018 election, which also saw Azmin rise to power in the federal cabinet. Nothing has changed. In fact, things are probably worser. The corruption that has always been there is still here, while the abuse of power by the ruling politicians to use the tools of the government machinery as their own political weapons against their enemies is now even worse, a political watcher told PoliticsNow Malaysia. Tell me, how many people don't see the MAC as the most compliant tool of the Anwar administration? Cases that dropped off the radar are suddenly revived, and who is to tell they won't be covered up again the moment the political agenda of the current ruling elite has been achieved? Indeed, the psy-war and propaganda has not only become wilder and more out of control with Team Anwar now in power, but also taken on a seriously vicious and darker turn. It looks like those who are now in power want to kill off all their enemies. So no mercy for those stand in the way or have the capability to provide competition, said the Observer. Whatever the current motives and the targets, be it Azmin so as to pressure him to return support to PKR, or current Chief Minister Amirudin so as to ensure he toes the line and gives up his powerful post to the next anointed successor when the order comes, or whether Anwar's daughter Nurul Izzah is really slated to become the first woman Selangor Chief Minister, it is still all up in the air in corruption-riddled Malaysia, where dishonest politics and politicians have become a sore and shameful trademark.